Matt, I've never seen you this excited about a movie premiere before. I mean, there was Dune, that was exciting. We're both pumped for that. But I mean, what? You bought the t-shirt, you bought the posters for this one.
I even bought the game.
You even bought the game, Minecraft the movie. When you saw that trailer, you must have sent me a DM like 20 times. You were so excited about.
I called my kids. I called my wife.
When Jack Black was like, "My name is Steve," or whatever he says. I don't know if he says that. But
you said it flawlessly. Yeah.
Yeah. He said that's what it was. He goes, "My name."
I got goosebumps.
Steve. Yeah. Jack Black playing Steve from Minecraft. Jason Momoa in there too in a pink jacket. Wow. I was so excited to see that. The
wardrobe department really went all out for that. And I realized that Steve just wears a blue shirt in the game, but man, it literally just seems like he put on a shirt. And that's it.
We don't really know what the cosmetics in Minecraft really mean anyway. I mean, I guess you can just wear anything. I was kind of confused by the visual style. As I imagine the director of that movie was like, what do we do with the visuals for a Minecraft movie? Like we have
just
to
make it animated, like all those fan films that you see on YouTube. I think most people would have preferred something like that, but higher production.
Yeah, instead it's like kind of realistic visuals, but cube-ish. Yeah. Cube-ish. But then the characters are all just.
It reminds me of the first iteration of the Sonic movie when everyone freaked out. They're like, this is awful. What are you doing? Yeah. And then they fixed Sonic. And now it's like an actual big franchise with like the third movie coming out.
Yeah, I feel like Minecraft, I don't know what they could do to Minecraft because Sonic was just like fix Sonic. That's one character. That's not that crazy.
Now this is
do.
like fix the entire aesthetic of your movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but like I've been a fan of Jack Black's for a long time because he's a talented actor. He has that fun band, Tenacious D, like all this other stuff. He's just been like really throwing himself into all these just kind of garbage movies lately. And you're just nothing against him. It's just now when I hear that Jack Black's going to be in something, I'm like, oh boy. Here we go. When they're like Jason Momoa and Jack Black in the Minecraft, it's just like, I think I know exactly what this is going to be,
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm sure he's having an absolute blast. And so he probably doesn't give an absolute ass about anything. Oh,
yeah. Well,
these critiques, it's like he's just having a good time and making boatloads of money.
Yeah. Oh my God. I like how, I don't know if he grew out his beard for the role or if he's just an old man phase now.
I think he's just like, I'm not cutting my beard, guys. Yeah. I think that's probably, he's like, I'm not cutting my beard for the movie. Sorry.
He just has so much money and he's such a big star now that they're just like, he doesn't want to cut the beard, guys. I guess I'll just kind of be a long bearded Steve. Or maybe he's like, I'm Steve, but trapped in the game world and my beard grew. I don't know.
Maybe it'll be a hit. Maybe it'll catch us by surprise and it will actually grow on people and it'll be great.
I'm going to have to see it because my son likes Minecraft. So it's just going to happen.
And that's the thing is like, even though it kind of looks like ass, it's probably going to make a ton of money because it's Minecraft and if as long as it appeals and it's halfway decent for kids, then easy win.
Bro, that Minecraft merch is like my son and all of his friends were collecting that before even playing the game, having ever played Minecraft. So the merch is like out of control.
Merch alone has a pull.
Yeah, there's so much money in Minecraft. It's nuts. Plus they got Minecraft Dungeons, which is actually pretty fun. I gotta say, I play that with my kids.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, like Diablo Light, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, I think we covered the movie. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. Welcome to Level With Me. We have a Patreon if you guys want to support the podcast. It is linked down below. If you sign up to our Patreon, you can watch the podcast recording live. And after the podcast, we have a little Q&A with the Patreon members and just a little hangout. So we appreciate all and any support. I know what you've been playing this week, Matt. I know it's space is in the name, which I think narrows it down to about 50,000 games.
Yes, but we all know what it is.
We do. Space Marine 2, possibly one of the most anticipated titles of the year. Is it officially like out from the
now officially out? Yeah.
Okay. Because it had the the pre-release, whatever they call it on Steam, the $90 you really want to play this now edition.
You can't wait any longer. It's now or never. Yes.
Yeah. I've played it also. We didn't manage to link up for some games. I think we just couldn't coordinate, but I assume you're pretty far into it at this point. What are your thoughts?
So I beat the game. I played all the co-op missions, and I played about 6-7 hours of the multiplayer. I've got about 30 hours in it, and wow. I think it's great. I think it's very, very good, though not flawless. I don't think it rises to the levels of like Game of the Year for me quite. It's not quite there, but it is a very, very good 40K game. I think they nailed a lot of what they needed to do well.
Yeah. I've seen how hyped 40K fans are for this game, and I can see why, in that it seems like the most well realized vision of the 40K universe, maybe in any sort of visual medium so far, where it just looks incredible. And the narrative elements of the campaign are also really enjoyable. There's good dialogue, there's good build up, there's fun cut scenes, there's actual character development and it's like decent too. It's not like super subtle, but it doesn't hit you over the head with it either. It's nice. It is. Yeah, it's impressive. I didn't get to play the multiplayer yet. I've played the I haven't beaten the campaign. I've played a bunch of it, and then I've played a bunch of the co-op, but I didn't play the PvP. I've seen some mixed stuff on PvP so far. So PvP is, I can see why it's mixed. It's very basic. So how do I describe this? It kind of reminds me, which I never really played back in the day because I never owned an Xbox when I was a kid. Reminds me of your Gears of War style. So it's kind of slower and methodical, and you sort of need to think of it as everyone's running around as pretty mobile tanks, where you can win a 1v1, and you could maybe win a 1v2 if you get a good grenade off, or you place you're in a good position. But a lot of times, if it's 2v1, you're not going to make it out because the health pools are pretty large, and that's just the nature of it. So it's slow. It's kind of methodical in the sense where you got to really, consider your positioning. Everyone has armor, but it's actually a relatively fast time to kill compared to what you would expect from the single player and the co-op. Mm-hmm. But your primary weapon will go through their armor, and then you go to their health. And their health, you get to their health, like they just melt. But the melee goes straight through the armor, doesn't even touch the armor at all. And so there's like an interesting kind of decision making that you have to make, where if you come across someone who is maybe full on armor and they're a heavy class that has 4 armor, but they've already taken some damage from before and it hasn't healed them quite yet, you can just fly on in with a jetpack or a grapple hook and finish them off really quickly with the melee. So it's this kind of slower pace, interesting experience that isn't bad, but it's not gonna knock your socks off, I don't think. But it was oddly addicting to play with some buddies. I legitimately enjoyed the 6 hours that I played. That's cool. It does seem like, and I think maybe we predicted this before it even came out, was like it's throwing in multiplayer, co-op, and a substantial kind of single player campaign all together. Yeah. Usually when any game does that, one of those branches is kind of an afterthought, or they're going, how can we also squeeze multiplayer into this? And that feels like there's only 3 maps right now. Yeah. So it's very bare bones in that respect. And the maps are fine, but this was definitely not their main priority. Yeah. I've been enjoying it. I hate to say it, but I think my predictions were pretty spot on with it being kind of Darktide in terms of like co-op gameplay. Okay. Where in fact maybe even less, with some lesser depth than Darktide to an extent, where Darktide at least now has more customization options and more kind of class custom, like you can kind of go into a bit more depth with each class, although Darktide had less classes, each class had more depth to it. But the gameplay, it's incredibly cinematic and cool as you get to each moment and stuff. But once you're past like almost just like one level, you've kind of experienced all the different things that you're going to run into in terms of like gameplay progression and what types of fights you're going to have. And
I don't necessarily agree that there's less depth in Darktide, but I do agree that the enemy variety is definitely lackluster. It's probably one of my biggest complaints of the game is that there are basically two factions in the game right now, and most of them and most of the enemies you fight are pretty similar. And you do notice it pretty quickly.
Yeah, and once you get a groove going with a team that you're kind of like confident with, it's there's less moments of oh my god, where did these dudes come from, and more just like next wave, next wave, next wave. Pop the heal, pop this, pop that. There isn't quite as much. Yeah, it's more the same notes of Darktide in terms of those sort of working together with your teammates, staying close, calling out like new waves that are coming at you and stuff like that. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think that because I did spend a decent amount of time playing Darktide, this doesn't wow me in any sort of gameplay sense. It's more of a visual and presentation wow, and then the gameplay is very much, par for the course, Darktide kind of style game.
I don't think it resembles too much Darktide. I mean, it kind of does because it's a wave, like, you know, it's a horde shooter, right? So you're fighting hordes of enemies, but the whole parry system, the fact that you have to dodge at certain times, the enemy variety is lackluster, but I think the parrying in general really adds a lot more to it, and having to like kind of be aware of your surroundings, and as you said, once you're like in the groove, man, is it cinematic. Like when you stun a bunch, you get some so that they're in the like kind of like the down but not out state, where you then grab one out of the air, slam it to the ground, then pistol gun finish something else off, parry another, heavy attack. It is bonkers when you actually start getting into the groove of things.
Yeah.
So I guess I kind of a little bit disagree, but I can't argue that.
That's
like,
fair. The counter system is better than Darktide.
Even if it can be a little clunky at times. There are definitely moments where I'm like, why the hell am I not blocking anything right now?
Yeah. The counter system too has got a lot of weird things where somebody can like take your counter, or if the thing's killed while you're trying to counter, it'll like cancel it. And it's not always clear why your counter thing didn't work. You'll be like, I hit the counter button and it gave me the counter warning and it's just not doing it or whatever. And so the more you pay attention, you're like, oh, this thing broke it. So I get why there wasn't really an explanation of it. But
it can be a little clunky at times.
Yeah, a little bit of clunkiness there. Really cool looking. I'd say maybe there is more skill depth to it because of that counter system, where Darktide had more kit building depth to it. I will say the grind for some of that 40k stuff is just like, why?
it's a little excessive. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then you have to find items to upgrade. It's like,
which isn't too bad, but yeah,
it's just weird. It's like you need the XP and the item, and sometimes, and you're almost always in a situation where you have one thing but not the other, and then you're just like kind of annoyed because you're like, well, my XP grind isn't counting for much at this point.
I did the entire co-op on the second hardest difficulty, and then like a few times on the hardest difficulty, and so that's all 6 missions. And I got one of my classes I got basically to the beginning of the purple weapons. And then if I wanted to get to the legendary best of the best weapons, I'd have to do probably the entire campaign over again on the hardest difficulty, or maybe once or twice more on the entire thing. Like it's pretty slow. And that's just for one single class and only one like weapon like tree, because there's other weapons available for that class too that you'd have to grind as well. So it is pretty slow.
Yeah, I think people are not going to get it. Again, not to make the Darktide reference, but it feels like there might even be less longevity in terms of desirable progression tree. I felt less desire to push up this progression tree than I did even in Darktide. Because Darktide kind of had randomized weapon stuff and stats that you could get, and that added like, oh, I wonder what I could get. I wonder what kind of crazy high level weapons I could get. And this one's just like, well, no, you just upgrade your normal progression tree and then you get the elite version of this gun. And that's
but those elite versions are pretty cool. They're pretty badass.
Yeah, there does seem to be some fun like synergy stuff. Which class did you upgrade all the way to the end?
So I didn't upgrade it all the way, but I went with the Vanguard, which is the one that has the grapple hook. And I got the fencing weapon, which allows for easier parrying. And then I got the perk that allows for even easier parrying. So
what is easier? Just more time?
Gives you a bigger window. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm literally just like, I'll just see a big horde of like the bigger enemies, and I'll just fling myself in there, just start going absolutely buck wild, and they'll attack me, and I'll just be like, parry, nope, pistol shot. They'll another parry, just pistol shot. It is bonkers. So I'm basically a duelist fighting these giant juggernaut like Tyranids, and it is dope. It's so cool. And then I got my heavy friend over here on the side. He went with the heavy melt-a-gun, which is just absolutely overpowered, insane. And he's just melting all the little enemies. It's cool when you start to get some synergies going on, and you kind of have your role inside of the co-op. So there is, in my opinion, there is some replayability and some class diversity there.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I was enjoying the heavy class more because I'm not as big into the counter and parry gameplay. It's very important for this one, and you have to know it anyway as a heavy. Like every class has to do some of it. But I was just enjoying like a chain gun type, just go and like mow down all the infantry as they come up. Yeah.
I will say, and I completely agree, I do think that as fun as the co-op is, and I gotta say, the fact that the co-op runs alongside the single player, genius. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. The entire time Titus, the main character, is doing his missions, there's another team that is assisting you with the side objectives, and when you're playing the campaign, you're like, we mentioned that we were going to do that one thing. Like, what happened about that? It's because you do it in the co-op. And so like, there's this moment where it involves a big ship, and in the main story, you're like, we got to go. Nope. The other team's working on it. And then you see the results of what happens to that ship. You're like, damn, that was sick. So
it is clever.
It's really cool how they blended that together. That said, I do think it'd be really smart of them to be able to somehow bring in the single player campaign into the co-op.
Yes, and the progression. So dumb that it's disconnected.
Yeah, I do think that's a little lame too. Yeah.
You have different progression for PvP, for co-op, and then single player has no progression, essentially.
No progression, yeah.
So you're just like, I want to do the campaign, but I also want to progress my characters. So having to separate those things, I find quite annoying too.
And they did it because there's certain missions that require you to use like a jetpack, and you have to, because that the environment is literally designed around a jetpack.
Yeah, but just make him that class for that mission, and then you progress that class or whatever, right?
Right.
Whatever the jetpack class
is. They could have done a workaround. But also I think they should do a workaround where they incorporate at least a large majority of the single player into co-op, because only 6 missions, even if it was the same sort of area, because like you're doing a long inside tandem, they're all different. The single player is completely different from co-op, at least in terms of the environment, but you're in like a similar area, if that makes any sense. Anyways.
Well, also you can play single player as a co-op experience.
You can, yeah.
So it's already kind of set up for that. Why not just let you do it's like, because you're sort of hitting the same environments, right? Because you're A team and B team essentially hitting different missions. Totally makes sense for co-op, right? You have A mission and B mission of each environment. Like, done and done. The UI and especially the matchmaking stuff just feels very clunky and weird. And
I actually wasn't too bothered by the UI. What specifically?
I thought joining a mission was very janky, where you have to select the mission. I don't know if you tried it with randoms.
I didn't do it with randoms, no.
Okay, so if you do it with randoms, you select the mission and then you wait for people to connect to your party.
Yeah.
And then you all have to step into the we're ready for the missions section. And it's like, why don't we just skip that step in phase and
just go straight into it?
Yeah. And then even if you compare it to Darktide, which I think had a better matchmaking system, you either select specifically what mission you want to run, or you just say, give me any old mission, but at this difficulty level. And then it just matches you with a party. And then you don't have to worry about people being ready to go because everybody who's queued up is ready to go, you know? I don't know. There seems like a lot of things that they're like, I guess we could do it this way. And like none of the solutions were particularly great, but I'm sort of picking apart the areas of the game that I do wish were better because it is such a good looking game and just generally fun and cinematic experience that I wish there were some better progression and a little bit more content and a little bit better UI behind it so that I could play it more and feel like it wasn't going to kind of burn out after a very specific period of time, you know?
I mean, I've already got my 30 hours. I'm very content. I don't need more. I'm not someone who is sitting needing a game to last hundreds of hours. So I'm pretty content. But I 100% agree that I think the game would have been so much more enjoyable long term if they could have just incorporated the single player. I mean, the content's already there, right?
Yeah.
Just somehow cobble something together so that it just works. Like that would be an easy win for them. And then it's going to just add to that variety. And then a horde mode at day one, I think also would have been just peak. I think that would have been incredible.
Is that planned
it's like
for later?
Season 4.
Okay,
so it's a
4.
ways off.
Wow.
Yeah. Might be one of those games you want to come back.
What did you think about the controls? Did you have to do a lot of rebinding or did you just
I did do some rebinding. I found the pairing on PC to be really awkward the way I had it set up originally. So I adjust some things. And even then
by default, which is weird.
Was it C key?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I put it to Q.
Yeah, that makes sense. I found it really, they have toggle aim, which either you're used to it or you're not used to it, but also the aim was middle mouse button. And
that's really weird.
If you're playing something like a heavy class, which is mostly aiming and shooting, pressing middle mouse and then having to press it again because you can't counter or roll while you're stuck in the aim thing. It's just a nightmare control-wise.
Well, did you just change it back to like default using right click?
Yeah. So I changed my aiming to right click and then I had to am using a thumb button for melee. So
that's what I'm using too. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. It just seemed like the PC, like it seems like it was console first control.
It does feel like it does feel, and what I hear is that console plays very well. I've actually got friends who usually are mouse and keyboard almost all exclusive.
Yeah.
And they're using controller.
That's same from what I heard too, is they're going, I would not try and play this game on mouse and keyboard, which sucks because that's what I like to play with. And it just requires quite a bit of key rebinding before it even starts to feel good. And then, so I don't know.
But it is still playable though for mouse and keyboard. It's still good.
It is. Just don't try and use the default. And because I was frustrated for like the first 2-3 missions. Like, God, I just can't hit the like keys that I need to in the amount of time and stuck in aiming. And then, and then you get into it and you're like, oh yeah, this is just a terrible, terrible system.
Yeah. One final big critique I want to give is the bosses in it were really cool. The ones that I fit in the single player. I played the single player on the hardest difficulty, which is called like Angel of Death or something. Yeah. And it was tough. It was tough all the way through.
Did you co-op single player or did you?
I did. Okay. I did solo, which felt good all the way until the end boss. It took me, I think it took the entire campaign took me about 14, 15 hours to complete.
Yeah.
Which was apparently very long considering there's a lot of people that played it on like normal and did it in like 6.5 hours. So if you play it on the harder difficulty, you will be slower. Also, I'm a streamer, so I take my time because I'm talking to chat and everything. So that number gets a little inflated. But
do you get any rewards for doing it on the highest difficulty?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay,
I was hoping that I would get like a cool badge or a cool
that's
armor piece or something.
Unfortunate. Yeah. That would be neat.
Maybe there was and I just missed it, but besides the point. The final boss, without getting into spoilers, because I don't want to spoil anything, is got to be one of the most annoying bosses I have ever had the displeasure of fighting in a game.
Oh, no.
And not because when you're actually able to fight the boss, it's not that bad. But about 60% of the fight, you are not actually able to deal damage to the boss. You are literally just dodging attacks and waiting for them to go through their dialogue and their animations. And you're just like, this is already a really long fight. Why are we doing this? It was so awful. I eventually did it. Now this was at the end of like an 8-hour stream. And so I played for like 30 minutes. It didn't take me that long to actually beat it because the next day I beat it within about 45 minutes. But the fact that it just forces you to sit there and you just cannot attack the actual boss and interact with the boss itself for legitimately 60% of the fight, it is just the biggest slog when you fail.
Yeah, that sucks. I haven't gotten there yet. I will. I'm not going to do it on your crazy difficulty mode.
Wouldn't recommend it. Unless you're doing co-op. I think that if you're playing co-op, it really wouldn't have been that bad because your AI teammates do nothing. They'll kind of sit there
sometimes, which is nice.
Yeah.
But most of the time they're like, I'll just sit over here and fight this guy for the next 5 minutes. You're like, good job. All right. You go do that.
They're not great. And so I think if you were with teammates, some buddies, then the little brief windows that you had the opportunity to actually attack the boss would have been, you could have just like dunked on him, right? Like it probably wouldn't have been nearly as bad. But when you're just by yourself and you're just like, please, this health is not going down after 10 minutes. Yeah, it's a lot.
I will make one more small critique too, is that, the trial system in the game that's like kind of tutorial, you get unlock credits with it. And it's like each class has 3 trials.
I never did that, no.
Okay, so it's an easy way to get some of the little green unlock chips at the start.
Oh, okay.
So you can spend those and experiment a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know if they designed them at the start and then did some major rebalances later and never came back to them. Some of the trials, super easy to get the like A tier grade on it. Some of them, I'm just like, I don't know if that's possible to get A tier.
It's literally impossible.
Yeah. Or the way to do it right is to actually ignore all of the instructions and just like use a pistol or something. They're like, grapple onto the guys and defeat them, like, or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but I can actually beat it in your time thing if I just use the handgun instead. In fact, doing it the way you recommend doing it is... you'll almost never beat it in time to do it. I don't know. I was just kind of bothered by that. So it's actually a time
trial.
Yeah, most of them. So it's time trial to get the grades that you need to get the unlocks that you want. Mm-hmm. And some of it's just like not really well thought out or very, one of them is you just got to get
good level cap.
No. Some of it is fine. And some of it is like, how are they? This is all based on chance or something. Like one of them is you got to spot like a enemy with your ability, but sometimes it's just not right there. And once you trigger the ability, it's on cooldown. So you're just like guessing sometimes. And
nice.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, cool. It's a time trial where I just guess.
You just kind of guess that the invisible enemy is here.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Sort of lame.
Yeah. Anyway.
All in all, I'm very happy with the game though. I think it's fantastic. It's great to see the excitement for 40K fans. They've got a game that finally like really lives up to that AAA hype and delivers on the visuals and cinematics and story. And while it has a couple weaknesses here and there, I don't think it's perfect. I'm happy. I really have enjoyed my time.
Is this seasonal content going to be free or is it pay? Okay.
The deluxe editions and all that is all for paid cosmetics.
Okay. That's good to hear. Because I was fearing that it might get a little bit of that, you know how like Starfield, everybody was like, this game's great in the first day or two. And then like you gave it a little bit longer and people were like, oh, this game's not so good anymore now that I figured it out. I feel like it might get a little bit of that treatment in like a week or two once people kind of consume all of the content.
The honeymoon phase ends.
Yeah, and then they're going to be waiting for that seasonal stuff. But it's good that the seasonal stuff is free, and hopefully that's like a nice, fun way to re-engage with the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited by it. I think it's a really good entry for 40K fans. Hopefully they can just keep making it better from here on out, because I think people can also see the potential of this being a game that could offer even more longevity,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, I thought it was Unreal Engine. It's not Unreal Engine. It's their own proprietary engine that they used for like the
World War Z.
Yeah, World War Z.
I mean, you can see that World War Z throughout the entire campaign with all the hordes of enemies. So makes sense.
Yep. Well, I know the other thing that you've been playing like crazy. No Man's Sky fishing update.
Oh yeah, I was like, I mean, I've been playing. Yes.
Yeah, I know you got into that. Your stream fans were like, stop playing this cool Warhammer game. Let's see some fishing in space or on planets.
Yeah. I mean, it's No Man's Sky, and they, for some reason, just keep. I feel like they're updating their game based off of the progress that they're making in the other game, No Fire, whatever it's called.
They're probably sharing a lot of the similar tech, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what engine it's built on. Is it their own proprietary engine? It might be.
Probably.
But yeah, it's like, it makes sense because I think Sean Murray, he just loves his game, and I don't think he wants to make No Man's Sky 2. I think he just wants to keep making No Man's Sky. So it's cool that they're able to just keep adding content that's free also, by the way, to the game. So they're just like,
there hasn't been a paid DLC at all. It's all been free.
Yeah, and they're just like, wouldn't it be cool if you could just fish in the lakes and like have a whole fishing mini game and everything for it? And they just added it. So that's cool. Speaking as somebody who's not a huge fan of No Man's Sky, just because it's giant PCG world, procedural generated world, I'm not particularly excited by it, but I am happy for fans of the genre because it is a special thing to have an ongoing game that just gets endless content.
There was a glitch where a guy cast his line on a planet and it landed in another planet you could see out in the distance. So he was fishing from one planet to another planet, which was pretty great.
That is dope. Now I want to make that game. Planet Fisherman.
Planet fishing.
Yeah. Why go to another planet when you can just level up your cast strength? You know? That's like Goku from Dragon Ball Z fishing. You know, it would be like
takes
some
like
Super
50 years
fish
for it to land in its destination.
I like that. That makes me think of Star Trucker, which is like the space trucking game where they're just like, let's take this mundane, everyday type thing, which would be a trucking sim, and put it in space.
And then you got to manage your different things and gravity. And yeah.
Did you play that one yet?
I played the demo and I wasn't really too keen on it, but I could see the appeal.
It's a vibe game, right? It's like either you like the trucking vibe or you don't like the trucking vibe.
Yeah.
You'll get there. You'll get into your full-on dad gamer phase soon enough, Matt.
I'm sure I will.
I mean, you were playing Supermarket Sim for like a while. So
yeah, played it actually for a couple streams. Not wrong.
Oh, man. Did you see or I should say, did you comprehend the AI Doom presentation? Did you see that?
I didn't even watch it. No.
Okay. So I'm going to try and explain this, even though I don't fully understand it, because if you think you are getting a grasp on learning language models, aka ChatGPT and all of the AI stuff out there, AI Doom is like, I don't know. The tech behind it is insane. But the basics of this is I believe Google did a presentation, or they did it in combination with NVIDIA and a bunch of other people because they're all kind of working together. But a team at Google published a research paper on how to make a fully AI generated video game, but instead of the AI, say, writing out the code for a video game, which I think you might think that's what it was.
Right.
It's instead frame by frame generating what it thinks Doom should be. And it can do it 20 times a second. So the frame rate is 20 frames per second of it just going, Doom is this, Doom is this, Doom is this, Doom is this. And then like taking your input and having you, and it remembers the rooms that you've been in and the bad guys that you've killed somehow. And so you can go around and play Doom that is AI generated every single frame. But as you play it longer and longer, there's more anomalies that start to occur because it starts to just like add in little things here and there that wouldn't be in the base version of Doom. It is trippy. It's like an acid trip version of Doom or something where you're just like, this is how I remember it, but also now there's a shark or something. Yeah. It's very, very weird. Not fully applicable to anything yet, as far as I can tell, where you're just like, this is neat. I mean, I would never want to play 20 FPS AI generated Doom.
No.
But there was sort of a talk by NVIDIA CEO a while ago where he said like, our video games are all going to be AI generated, but like from frame to frame. So it'll be like adapting in like crazy ways. And it's just on a level, and I would try and explain how this tech works, but I honestly don't know. I read the whole article and it was talking about how
they're wizards over there at NVIDIA.
They break it up into a couple of different engines that they're using in different ways. But yeah, this stuff is super crazy. I'd say watch the video on AI Doom, and it looks kind of like Doom, or it does look just like Doom, but then there's weird little anomalies that pop up here and there, and you're like, why'd that happen? And then only happen once, because it's just the AI.
It's just AI is just trying to think of like what it thinks it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it messes up from frame to frame, or there's like a little weird little artifact or something looks kind of funky.
I mean, it sounds like you could just have a never ending Doom. You could just have a never ending game, because the AI is just like, okay, we're generating a new level. Let's go. Let's rock. Let's go.
Yeah. Honestly, that part of it seems like the easiest part of the equation is just to have it go forever. I mean, you could do that with general procedural generation game tech that we already have, but this seems like it could apply to things down the road where you could have a game that just becomes what you want it to be as you're playing it. You remember that? And I might have brought this up before on the podcast, because it's one of my favorite bits of a novel, is in Ender's Game, when he's sort of he's training on these sort of video game simulators, and one of his classes had him progressing in this sort of psychological evaluation game where it's kind of a fantasy game, and he's exploring a fantasy world, and he like fights a giant, and he kills the giant, and then the giant's body falls over, and then all these other little creatures start building a city within the like decayed giant corpse, and like all this crazy stuff is happening. And it's like a game that is evolving based on his psyche to like either teach him a moral lesson and stuff like that. And I found that concept so interesting, because it was very outlandish to conceive of any video game that could behave like that. But this seems like it could be that type of thing where it's like, okay, well, what does this player seem to be struggling with, or what do they seem to be enjoying the most? I'm going to adapt the gameplay behavior based on that and do it dynamically. I think we're in for some really crazy stuff. It's probably not right around the corner,
or some absolute garbage.
Yes. Probably a bit of both, to be honest, which is generally the game industry as a whole. So more of the same.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's really crazy stuff. Really, really, really crazy stuff. So yeah, 5, 10, 20 years, man, things are going to be awesome. You know, whenever this tech can run at a decent frame rate and
not 20 frames per second
and do.
But the fact that they're even running and generating a game live is even 20 FPS is actually pretty incredible.
Yeah. And I think they're doing it on some proprietary NVIDIA chip that like nobody has access to. NVIDIA's like, this will cost you
the 6090 graphics card.
Yeah. It's $1 billion CPU or something.
Yeah.
It is cool though, which will be $10 in the next 5 to 10 years, you know, because technology is progressing so fast. We can run Doom on a refrigerator's calculator now, you know, so good stuff. Did you, so we've been talking about, we sort of covered how Concord was just like bombing horribly, and it's one of the biggest flops, one of the biggest recent gaming flops. Like you could make arguments that there's been bigger ones, but in terms of the amount
this is the biggest AAA flop recently.
Yeah.
Hands down.
So last time we talked about it, it was just basically nobody was playing this game because there was like no marketing, nobody was interested in it, and it was a pretty expensive game. They've literally pulled the plug on it now. It's like it's been shut down officially, like I think 2 weeks after it came out. Yeah. This is a game that was in production for like 8 years, launched on all these different platforms. Like it's really crazy to see such a high people were making the comparison to that knockoff World War Z game or DayZ game. What was that? It's like a zombie knockoff game that looked like.
Oh yeah, I know. Day After Tomorrow.
Day After Tomorrow.
No. That's a movie. The Day Before.
The Day Before. Yeah, I think you're right. They're making comparisons and saying that the Day Before outlasted this game in terms of like how long it was online for. it's really crazy. I don't know. It's just such an insane story. We've already talked about it, but it's just officially been pulled. So it's not coming back, you know?
They said that they're going to reevaluate and see where they can go from here. And maybe they'll come out with a free version. But considering that when it was in beta, there was a paid beta and then there was the open beta, and the open beta had less people playing.
Yeah.
That will probably indicate to them either like, we got to make some big changes, which I don't think they'll put any more money into this.
Yeah.
I don't see them investing big dev time into trying to shore up the problems, because it just doesn't matter what they do at this point. It'd be a huge investment to try and actually fix the core fundamental problems.
Yeah.
So even if they could just be like, hey, it's free, we'll have some microtransactions, whatever. Even then, I don't think they're going to be making up their costs. Close.
You know what I kind of hope they do, and this is sort of the game dev in me, but do you remember that MOBA, that Unreal Engine Paragon? So Paragon didn't succeed. Neat idea, really nice looking game, lots of high quality assets and stuff. Game didn't work out. I can't remember if Epic was the studio behind it or if Paragon. Okay, so Epic was behind it. What Epic ended up doing is taking all the assets from the game and putting it into their Epic Game Store asset library for free for any developer to take. Yep. And what's happened is there's now 2 versions of Paragon out there because the assets have been made free for anyone to use. And now there's like competing versions of what the old game was, where they reused the assets and remade MOBAs in sort of a different way that's like better than the original game. So it's kind of cool, but also anybody else can just take these high quality assets and use them in their game or break them down and see how they were built. This Concord was made in Unreal Engine 5. It would be neat if Epic had some sort of like, hey, we'll buy your failed game assets type program. Where it's like, look, you're not going to make any money off of this because you've already pulled the plug. Let us pay you X amount of dollars for your assets and we'll bolster our asset store.
Because the world environment looks good.
Yeah.
It's just the character models that are in it don't look very good.
Yeah. Or maybe they are appropriate, but for a different type of game, Yeah.
Like there's literally a character who she basically just looks like a NPC enemy that you would fight who uses a rocket launcher, but she's like a main character.
I know her.
And she's so bland. And there was I saw this video about a guy kind of critiquing all of the visuals of each of the characters, their character design. He's like, yeah, this character is so forgettable that you would have just assumed that this is just an enemy that you've like a fodder enemy that you would fight. And it's like, I completely agree.
I've been seeing the memes that are like, if Paragon was made by like a Korean studio or something like that, and all the characters are super hot and stuff.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And even then, when I'm like, oh, we like to make fun of it a bit because they just hyper sexualize their characters in those games. Even looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I would want to play this game more if the characters looked that good and sort of more stylistically interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if let's just say, for example, all the characters, your typical cliche, super badass characters, your hot characters, showing off a little bit more skin, it's got some sex appeal to it. I wonder if that would legitimately have kept Concord in the green. Would it have garnered a larger audience? I think it would have. Yeah. Because I think we're all human and people like sexy stuff and they like to look at, beautiful things. And I think there is appeal to that, but I don't know if it would have been enough to keep the game.
I think they would have needed more. It definitely would have helped, It's like,
I think it would have helped.
Yeah, you look at any fighting game, any, classic style fighting game, and it's all about how cool the characters look. Like they all have to look incredibly hot or super badass or whatever. But they can't you can't have a mundane character in a fighting game where it's like
Steve.
Steve. This is Steve from Minecraft. Like, or that would probably be a successful character. But
probably.
Kevin, this is Kevin. He's just hanging out. Like, what's up, guys? I'm okay at Kung Fu. Check this out. All right. Anyway.
I don't see it coming back. Even as a free to play, if it does come back as free to play, there might be like a bunch of people that will go and play it just to be like, oh man, like this is that game that failed so hard. At least let me try it out, right? There could be that little word of mouth. But then once people actually sit down and play it for a while, they'll be like, oh, okay, this is about as mid as you can possibly get. So I don't see it going anywhere. And I don't see them putting more money into it either.
Yeah. So what else you play this last week?
I'm actually happy to announce that I played the casting of Frank Stone, and it was actually sponsored by my Concord refund. I got money from Concord, the $40, and I put that straight into the casting of Frank Stone. Like, that's a win,
Thank you,
baby!
Concord. It's nice that people got their money back.
Yeah, no, that was legit. I was thinking about like going for a refund because like there's no one playing this. Like there's no way. Like there's kind of a contract, between player and Steam. It's like if I should be able to play my game, but there's only like 40 people. Anyways, so played the casting of Frank Stone, and it was a pretty good title. It's the whole dark anthology games like The Quarry, Dead. I was gonna say it's a Dead by Daylight crossover between that studio. So it's your story driven. You're making decisions for the characters. Like, do you want to save this guy or potentially save him, or do you want to run away? Right. And there'll be consequences for those actions one way or the other. You might think that it's really stupid to try to jump into the river to save the guy, but in reality, you ran away and you stepped on a landmine, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's really unpredictable, but it was fun. It was a nice little story. I felt like it had a lot of buildup and not the biggest payoff. It kind of felt like there wasn't a lot of like meat in the middle that it felt like there could have been a lot more action and a lot more consequences in the middle, but I enjoyed it. It has a cool way for you to be able to go back and replay and change apparently like really big sections, which is neat, which I haven't experienced.
That is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like a ton of branching paths and apparently like really big sections can be like completely different. So the goal is to see all those different endings, see all those different branching paths, and try to get either all of them killed or save them all if you can.
That's cool. That's cool. I always wonder about that, like looking at it again with dev goggles is like, what if somebody only plays your game once, but the amount of content you have to make for all these different endings and variations is like 20 times the amount of work as to just do one version of the playthrough.
But I think that's also the appeal of those games, because if it was just a story, like that's cool and all, but
you feel
it's
like you have less agency.
Story.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. No, that's cool. I bet you their spreadsheet of like game levels and variations and so it looks like that Charlie Day meme from Always Sunny where he's just like, and then you can go here and all the yarn is connecting together.
Yeah.
Gotta be fun making one of this.
And also tough. It must be really challenging. And to keep the story coherent between everything has got to be
you can't
very
just
difficult.
On a whim be like, what if, Bill did this instead? It's like, no, we can't. That changes 50,000 things. It all has to be like set in stone or like, it has to develop linearly where you can't go back and be like, and change like a story note early on. Might be too much. So I
enjoyed that.
Yeah. I hear you you beat Black Myth Wukong. Is that what's going on? Yeah.
One of the coolest endings. God, just so much production value at the end. I got the secret ending as well, which requires you to go to every one of the secret areas in all the chapters and then beat a secret boss who was very difficult. Good God, tons of HP, just attacks out the ass, beat him, and then
that's why you don't expect the attacks to come out. It comes out
the ass. Yeah, you're like, whoa, sir, put that away. It was a spectacle. I felt like the ending was probably like the final chapter was some of the best fights in the entire game. Yeah, they were challenging. Some of them, and this was also true for the secret boss too. They started to do some what I consider sins of boss design, where the boss doesn't stop attacking and doesn't let you get a hit in. There's this really awesome boss, a praying mantis, and I won't say any more because spoilers, but it just doesn't stop. And I'm like, bro, when is it my turn? When do I get to participate in this endeavor? Like legitimately, there was a 20-second combo, and I'm just like dodging left and right. I'm like, when am I supposed to get in there? So
and the game's like, just figure it out, bro.
Yeah, just wait, just be patient. Gotta be patient. It's like I am being patient. I don't.
Oh my gosh.
So those were a little rough, but when you actually beat the game and the final boss, the fight itself is spectacular. It feels fair. It's epic. It's challenging, and it like wraps up the story. At least the story that I could like understand because I'm not really familiar with Wukong's story at all. So I definitely felt very disjointed. Kind of what the feeling that I get when I play a Souls game because Souls are meant to be super vague. But yeah, absolutely spectacular. I loved the game. Still don't think it's like a 10 out of 10 or anything like that. But I absolutely could see this being a Game of the Year nomination easily.
Yeah.
And I could even see it potentially winning too, because it really was that good. And the people that like it love it. I think they've sold over like 10 million copies, and the average playtime is like 30 hours, which is
crazy.
Crazy. Yeah.
It sounds like, I mean, even if it isn't that like 10 out of 10 perfect game, it sounds like the amount of content and production value here is like almost unbeatable in terms of what type of game it is.
Yeah.
It's like an Avatar type release of a game. It's just like, we're just going to throw so much money at this thing that you have to like it.
Right. And as I said, like a couple weeks ago when I first started playing, how I was blown away by all the unique animations. It kind of just becomes what you expect. And so when you're fighting all these bosses that all have unique animations and they're all really tight and well done, you're just like, yep, that's just the game. I'm just used to it now. And it's just
it's funny
at this point.
How quickly you can get spoiled by something that's truly special, you know?
Yeah.
But that's also an interesting point of game pacing to a degree as well, where you're like, if this is your game design and like this is how much you're going to just throw a ton of budget at all these different characters and bosses and stuff, the newness and the excitement of it is going to depreciate over time to a degree. So there probably is like an actual sweet spot for like how much you're going to get out of the budget that you throw into a game. And sounds like they probably exceeded that to an extent, but that's still cool that there is that much there and that it was compelling enough for so many people to play through so much of the game and experience it all.
Yeah. For being their first game, I think this was like a passion project for like a very small crew, and then it kind of ballooned, and they got more funding.
They must have gotten like a ton of funding.
And to see all those years ago what they were trying to do, and it looked good back then, and then just actually have them realize it and do such an amazing job. It's like I said, it's not perfect. You only have like one, or I think you can technically have like a spear. Like, so there's some spear weapons, but the actual weapon variety that you have is very minimal. The maps are pretty lackluster. They're not like the highlight, but the boss battles and the story and the visuals and everything was just, it was cinema, baby. It was cinema.
Yeah.
It's great.
Cool, man. Very cool. It sounds like it's going to be a game that people will be able to go back to many years from now and still be probably blown away by it.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
I could see that.
I think I played a game of similar caliber this weekend, actually. John Wick Pinball. I don't know if you heard about that.
Did you get your pinball machine?
I didn't get my pinball machine, but I did go to a pinball arcade. And one of the latest machines that just came out, and it was kind of memeing on the internet because there's a clip of Keanu Reeves playing his own pinball game and being like, whoa, you know, and being Keanu. Yeah.
I'm Keanu Reeves.
I'm Keanu Reeves playing a pinball game of myself. This is awesome.
He's a cool dude.
I did go to a pinball arcade this weekend because I'm in the Pacific Northwest, which is the land of pinball. There are so many pinball places around here, man. It's insane.
That's cool.
There's actually a website.
I'm surprised.
There's a website that it's like Google Maps, but for places that have pinball machines. So it'll be like, here's Joe's Pizzeria. It has 2 pinball machines, and it'll be marked on the map, and it'll say what pinball machines they are, and even the high scores and weird stuff like that too, which is very funny.
Nice.
But yeah, I was looking at it because there's tons of places around here with tons of pinball. So we found a nice new pinball joint that's not too far from us. Went there and they had the new John Wick pinball machine, and it's pretty darn good. Cool. Like I've I've been playing enough lately to get a feel for what kind of tables I like, and I like tables.
So what makes it good? What specifically makes the pinball machine good?
I need to learn all the pinball terminology, so I'm probably getting some of this wrong. But I think it's got lots of good ramps, which is like, I mean, it's what it kind of sounds like to a degree, but there's just so many core spots that you can hit the ball to right away that you can combo and do back-to-back shots, and like you're not getting constantly the ball thrown back in your face if you miss a target by just a little bit. Some other tables can be really punishing like that, and especially older tables, they have I forgot what the outside lanes are called, but basically it's where the ball can go and you just lose it and it just goes down and you're screwed. Yeah, basically the gutter lane. A lot of new pinball tables are better about not making the gutter as big a factor of gameplay, where a lot of the old tables you have to like,
I remember those.
Yeah, you got to get used to nudging the table. It literally becomes a mechanic to avoid the gutter because there's not much else you can do. So yeah, I don't know. It just felt like a really nicely flowing table, fun aesthetics, fun progression. I was digging it. That's my pinball table review from a pinball newbie over here.
Nice. I'm excited for you to get your actual pinball machine.
Bro, I've been waiting.
Do you have a estimated time when it's arriving?
The guy said it was going to be towards the end of this month. I have a feeling it's probably not going to be till next month, but we'll see. I'm waiting on the latest edition, man. The new thing.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm pumped for it. Excited.
I did have a chance to play, changing subjects, the Black Ops beta, the open beta, because I played the closed beta.
What were we playing before? Oh, it was closed, right? That's right.
The closed beta. So now they've got more maps. They increased the level cap to 30. They added in 2 new weapons, and they increased the weapon XP so you could experiment with more of the attachments and stuff like that. And it's very similar to the last beta, but one thing that is becoming crystal clear is that their design philosophy around maps are all tiny, and that they want the action to be unbelievably fast-paced. And if you have only 10 seconds alone time, you're going to think about your life, all your problems in life, your existential dread, and you can't be having that. Yeah. Cannot be having that.
That's I don't like that in shooters. I like Battlefield's transit times between fights, right? Like we won objective C. Oh, looks like they're capping B. It's going to take us 30 seconds or more to get there. Let's have a small cooldown period where my brain can cool off for a little bit and I can think about something and catch my breath before I go back into the high focus, high precision, high intensity gameplay that I do like, but it's nice to have it in waves, just like you get in any sort of sporting activity, when you a game of football or soccer or whatever, there's time in between the major play sessions, the major events. The players can recoup, they can think about it. Not everybody's got the ball all the time. Yeah.
It is every single map. There are technically medium-sized maps. Or in this case, I guess they're large compared to the small ones. Yeah. But it is wild how everything is so small. And I'm worried that, because I heard from someone, I can't remember who it was. He talked to a developer and they said, like, yeah, our players really engage and they like the smaller maps, like your shipments and stuff like that. It's like, that's fine. But I think that is 2 things. First of all, they're playing shipment because it's just chaos. People do like chaos, and there's no getting around it. People like the meat grinder. But they're also playing it because they want to level up their weapons.
Yes.
And I think that's indicative of your really slow weapon unlock system. And I think that's more of an issue than anything else. Like if the weapon unlocks weren't such a grind and people weren't having to feel like they needed to get into there just to get it done faster, then there might not be this issue where they feel like they have to do that.
I do wonder. The other thing. Yeah, continue.
So the analogy I was using when I was playing, because I felt like it was appropriate, is I love dessert. I love it. It's delicious. Get that sugary, dessert in me. But I don't want dessert for every meal. If every single map is just tiny ADHD, just chaos, everything's flying around. like that's going to eventually get old. I like having some
you get
nuance and some
diabetes.
differences there.
Yeah.
You get diabetes. Yeah. Exactly. So I am a little worried that there's going to be some burnout, and I could be wrong. We could be looking back at this, and this could be the most popular Call of Duty because it just plays
Remember
to that.
when Matt said he liked big maps? Gah.
Yeah.
What a bad take.
Well, not this is necessarily a bad take, but it could be very successful for the franchise. It could be just that, yes, this is keeping people engaged for longer.
Yeah.
Our player base is staying longer because they just love the maps.
It's true. We don't fully know the player base that they're going to build, even though it seems to be very catered towards Battlefield. We recognize that a lot of Battlefield players have left the franchise to go off to more tactical-oriented games and whatnot, or maybe Call of Duty, and this is kind of dipping into that pool a bit. But if they only build it around a specific type of map design, then they will only build an audience who likes that specific map. And maybe that's good. Maybe that's what they want. But I like bigger maps. I didn't play the old Battlefield games just so I could play Metro 24/7.
Right. And if I was going to play Metro 24/7, I would just play Metro 24/7.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want just that all the time.
Yeah. And your point about weapon grinding too does make me, I mean, it's like there's always a Metro server going for like Battlefield 4 or whatever, right? Whichever their lockers, whatever they're running. But there's always a grindy server. Even with Call of Duty, that terrible, what is it? The shipment. Yeah. Those are there for people who are just like, they want to grind those weapons. Then they probably, some of them get addicted to it, but it's almost always populated because there's always somebody who's getting into the game and needs to rank up some guns, and they don't want to do it at this crazy slow pace of the other maps. So if you just look at the data, you're getting the wrong kind of feedback, because you're not saying, hey, is our game kind of a slog to upgrade weapons, or does it not balance properly between maps? Is the upgrade time unequal between playing maps and playtime? That's the feedback you should be getting, as opposed to people just love this map where you get engaged in combat within 1 second of spawning
instantaneously,
and then you die 10 seconds later. They just love that cycle. Maybe they don't. Maybe they hate it and they're just trying to upgrade their weapons so they can get out of this garbage map and go play something more well-paced.
I was playing and round the corner, saw basically 3 guys spawn, took all of them out, and I was like, I'm in their spawn right now. Threw a grenade on the other side of the corner that was just right behind me. Lo and behold, someone else spawned there. Grenade didn't take him out, but it was like I could predict that someone was going to be right behind me. Not because they flanked me, but because they were literally spawning.
Yeah.
Not great.
Yeah. Not good. I think devs should spend more time equalizing the point gain between different paced experiences so that players don't feel pressured by the progression system to play experiences that are going to improve that. Because think about how many times in any game you've played, whether it's been an action RPG or an FPS or whatever it is, that you have catered your gameplay to progress quicker as opposed to doing the thing that you
enjoy,
really actually like the most, you know?
Yeah.
We do it all the time, all the time, you know?
Yep.
And sure, we can argue that there's some pros and cons where like maybe these things make you dip out into areas of gameplay that you normally wouldn't experience. And so you're getting a more varied experience, but not in these cases. A lot of the cases, it ends up giving you a less varied experience. So yeah, I think that's a good lesson for a lot of devs to sort of take in and stop reading your data, because as we all know, data is one of the most misconstrued things ever. And depending on how you want to interpret it, or what numbers specifically you're looking at, or what correlations you think are important, it could mean 100 different things. The same numbers could all mean wildly opposite things. So yeah, get better at reading your data, devs.
I'm still looking forward to the game, but
Free to play Battlefield.
I hope they have more variety.
Yeah, just wait till the microtransactions come out. I mean, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that there's a profit model in there that makes some sort of sense. It doesn't make sense to me. We're going to be playing it and they're going to they're gonna arena us. What's it called? Infinite Arena Breakout, whatever it is.
ABI, Arena Breakout Infinite.
God, I hate that name so much. It's so
terrible.
stupid.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's just it's word salad.
Yeah, they're gonna ABIS, and it's not so much that I don't trust some of the devs and their intentions, but I think some of that stuff's out of their hands to a degree where they could
publisher.
The publishers could just be like, hey, so we're gonna have to up the profit model here. Here's the plan. You have to do it. Sorry, you're under contract.
You think it's because it's on Game Pass now? They're gonna have to come up with some other ways of monetizing it.
I don't know. Maybe they got a good Game Pass deal. I don't know how much they get paid for a Game Pass type thing.
Well, it's we're talking about Call of Duty. Maybe you're talking about a different game right now. We're talking about, or I thought I was talking about Black Ops 6, the Call of Duty game.
Oh.
What were you thinking we were talking about this entire time?
I was also thinking that. And not thinking about another game that has the name Ops in it.
You were thinking of, okay. All right, fair enough.
Oh, God.
No, yeah.
Let's just cut this whole conversation where I think you're talking about one game.
I was like, I understand, like, a lot of what you were saying was lining up, but there was other subtle things that were not lining up. I'm like, where are you going with this right now? Where are you going with this?
So much more makes sense now. Okay. So much more. Because you know what's funny about that is Hawk Ops did have a closed beta, right? It was closed.
Well, no, I think
it was kind of closed. It was like invite or something. You had to get invited to it. So that's a lot of it lined up right at the start. And then I was like, oh, interesting that the maps were so small. Like I didn't realize they were switching up the maps to be smaller.
Yeah.
Fascinating. All right. Well, cool.
Well done, Level Cap.
You're welcome. That was a really good.
I was like halfway through. I'm like, what you mean business model? They're going to be changing? It's Call of Duty. Like,
you know what I like about this, Matt, is you're a very agreeable person. So like, I'll say something and be like, yeah, totally. Let me work that into a way that makes sense for the podcast. But in your head, you're like, I don't know.
Well, I wasn't sure. I was like, because then he started talking about Battlefield. And I was like, okay, like,
you know what this brings me to,
I could see the Battlefield comparisons with Metro and Locker. So I was like, okay, maybe he's going along with that. I was like, I can see that.
This is why we need more unique game names. Okay. I'm done with all the Call of Duty Black Ops and the Hawk Ops and the Spec Ops and the Delta Ops and the whatever you got going on.
That's really fun. That's really funny.
It's too much. Yeah. This is why I can't name my space game anything with the word star in it, because every single space game on the planet has star in the title, and I'm sick of it. Yep. I can't even remember games I play because I'm like, it's star something. Star Bound, Star Citizen, Star Field, Star Valor. Like, it's just endless. I'm not even hitting the big ones like Star Wars or Star Trek. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Gotta come up with new names, guys. Just come up with new. Anyway, I'm trying to cover myself for. We've made this mistake before, but you've caught it earlier where we're talking about Black Ops or Hawk Ops or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I apologize for not being a little bit more critical on your.
No. I mean, you said the game name. And I was like, yeah, he's obviously talking about Hawk Ops.
Talking about the new Delta Force.
Yeah, I gotta say my interest in Black Ops 6 is just nothing.
That's fair.
Call of Duty
I'm still interested because
yeah,
I'm excited for the single player because they usually are at least somewhat interesting for the Black Ops series, and I want to try out
Black
Zombies.
Ops. Matt, do you remember we played? I think it was like one of the Black Ops games together. We were trying to get through the single player. It was the one where we kept making fun of it because the guy kept going, "Train goes boom." The like narrative.
Yeah, I don't think I ever finished that one.
Yeah, we didn't finish it. We were like halfway through it and like, this is so stupid. I can't just like, do you want to just not play this anymore?
Boom.
Yeah, train goes boom. I think that was like Black Ops 4 or 5.
It was a long time
ago. But
I don't remember which one.
Yeah. I like the advanced warfare narrative. That one was fun.
I don't think I did that one.
I like it when they just go crazy with it, you know, when they're like, everybody's like robots and laser beams and whatever. I'm like, cool.
Everyone's robots.
Whenever they go tactical and it's just like 10 Jason Stathams in a room being like, this is the plan or whatever, you know, and you're just, I can't do that. It's too much. It's too insane.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty much.
Yeah. Oddly, yeah, the more tactical games feel more insane to me than the more outlandish games. Somehow, I can wrap my head around them. Well, you want to wrap up the old Potteroony there?
Sounds good.
You once again, I would say thank you all for watching, and if you want to support us on Patreon, check out the links, and we'll have our little post-podcast discussion about things like StarCraft and whatnot, or Star Citizen. Yeah, there we go. Another Star game.
Star Wars, you mean?
Star-Lord. In the post-podcast show. And Matt is going to leave you guys with some incredibly useful advice.
Okay, so if you find yourself fighting the Tyranid threat and you're struggling to get parries down properly, I recommend in the co-op experimenting with some weapons, some melee weapons that have the fencing perk. The fencing perk opens up a wider window for you to get the perfect parry off, making it much easier to combat those attacks. So if you ever find yourself in that situation where Xenos are all around, make sure you try out the fencing perk. You're welcome.
I like that. Is that weapon specific or class specific?
It is weapon specific and different. So when you're leveling up the weapons, and you're able to unlock different ones, they have different defensive stats. There's block, balanced, and then fencing. Block, you cannot parry at all, but it just blocks the attack. Mm-hmm. Balance is in between the two, and then fencing is straight up just like you're all about parrying. Cool. Makes it a lot easier to parry.
I will look that up.
You're welcome. Your life advice.
It's good advice. Good advice for you 40K fans out there. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take care.